All right. So today, I know it's a little late. I do apologize. We've been on the road for the past few hours, just getting back from vacation. We were in Gettysburg, Mechanicsburg, PA. We visited Gettysburg yesterday, went to Hershey, PA today, went to Washington, D.C., and yeah, had a pretty good time. I mean, it was a lot of driving. We definitely traveled a lot on vacation, but it was fun. Got to see a lot of cool things. Went to Washington, D.C. for the first time. Got to see some of the Smithsonian museums. I believe we went to the Natural History Museum, so that was really cool. But today, we're going to be talking about some not so heavy topics that we've been covering the past couple days that have been in the news regarding China or things of that nature and war. So Donald Trump has asked all his cabinet members his cabinet secretaries to cut down 5% of the spending next year. Mitch McConnell states that entitlement reform needs to take place, and we have some evidence that it is true that the left is the civil group, and they will bring back civility to America because Republicans are just too violent. So we'll start off with Donald Trump came out today saying that he wants all his cabinet secretaries to find a way to cut back spending by 5% next year. And the reason he's doing this is because it just came out that we have a deficit of $779 billion. So this is just trying to find a way to cut back some spending on necessary expenses that are taking place. And I'm sure it will not be that hard to cut back 5% from the cabinet departments. And also tying into this, since this deficit is so huge, $779 billion, Mitch McConnell had an interview with Bloomberg yesterday, I believe. And what happened there is he was talking about the need for entitlement reform. And yes, we do need entitlement reform. Unfortunately, Bloomberg and every mainstream article was throwing him under the bus, saying that, we need to. He was basically saying that we need to take away entitlements. You don't deserve them, things of that nature, just basically totally misrepresenting what he actually was saying. And Mitch McConnell is absolutely right. Excuse me. And Paul Ryan has also, the House Speaker, has also been saying that we need entitlement reform. And we do, majorly, because 73% of the government spending, I believe, from this Pew research, 73% of the fiscal estimate spending was on human services. So 24% from Social Security, 15% from Medicare, 13% for health, income security was 13%, veterans was 5%, and education was 3%. So we're spending billions and billions of dollars altogether. The government spent almost $4 trillion on just these entitlements right here. So that's huge. And we can definitely do some kind of reform to make sure people can still get the assistance if they need it and benefits too, but make sure that we're not overspending on it and not making people dependent on the government to provide them with retirement or health insurance or anything like that. And the reason for that is because this money is going nowhere. It's in this bundle and it doesn't, get any interest or anything like that. It doesn't grow. It's not even like your savings account where it grows by a penny, or something. At least it grows every year in your savings account. This doesn't. Actually, there's less money going into it because there's more older people. And so more people are getting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, because there's more people now in the country and not enough people are working to be able to afford this. Not only that, but in order to keep this pace up, we're going to have to increase taxes tremendously. And this also goes to show why we shouldn't have universal health care. If we had single-payer health care, universal health care, whatever you want to call it, then we would be tremendously in debt. We would have a much larger deficit than we have right now with the $779 billion. For instance, if I'm not mistaken, when Bernie Sanders' plan for single-payer health care would have cost us $30 trillion within the first couple of years. So this is tremendous, and this is something nobody wants to talk about because it creates a dependence on the government to provide people with assistance when we should be working on making sure people are independent and can take care of themselves and are responsible and can make sure their family can lead an independent life and not have to depend on the government or anybody else. And just, yeah, so really, I think Mitch McConnell was done wrong by this, and people treated Paul Ryan very wrongly when it came to his stance on entitlements. I'm with them both. However, I would definitely say that I am a little more left-leaning when it comes to these entitlements. I do think the government should be there to help out, especially if you've fallen under hard times and you're unemployed. So welfare and food stamps are awesome. A lot of my family was or is on food stamps and welfare. So I definitely do think that they serve a purpose, especially with capitalism. Now, I'm all for the free market, but we cannot be naive to what happens. In any hierarchical structure, there will be people at the bottom who are dispossessed. So I don't know how we would do it properly, but I do believe that there should be a safety net. And so what I'm getting at by bringing up the hierarchical structure of capitalism, which is inescapable. There's always going to be hierarchical structures, and we just found a really good one with the free market. Now, getting back to my point, the people who are dispossessed, I do think, should get some help because it's hard to start from zero and build up. So I'm all for having assistance, but maybe have it so that way you receive it if you're working part-time or if you get a job, then you can receive some benefits if needed. And that's kind of how it was, I believe, under Ronald Reagan. And in California, I believe they did that when he was governor. They did like a work for welfare type thing. And I think Donald Trump is trying to do the same thing right now, which I'm all for. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, there's less people on government assistance than there was in a long time, especially under Barack Obama. There were more people. Now there's less under Donald Trump. And that has a lot to do with the economy doing very well. Now, I'm not giving all the credit to Donald Trump for the economy doing well, but he definitely contributes to it. Now, like I said, I do think that we should have a safety net. I do think it's important, but we should definitely find a way to reform it and figure out how we can save money on it, because we just can't keep this up. Not only that, but there's so many other ways that people can receive assistance if needed, whether it be through charities, nonprofits, churches. There's so many places that are not government affiliated that can help people out, that are willing to help people out. I mean, I was a volunteer for a little while. I wasn't able to fully commit to the 18th month program simply because of school and this and work and home life. There was just a lot of things in the way, making excuses, the reasons why I couldn't finish it. But anyway, it was a really cool thing. It's called Circles. And what they did was basically team up people from different income backgrounds. So lower income, impoverished, whatever, to middle, to working, to upper class. And they tried to help the people who are impoverished basically learn how to become financially independent and learn how to manage their money and things of that nature. So that was really cool. And it also helped people who came from, more maybe a wealthier background or middle class and never really struggled for anything, grow a sense of sympathy and maybe even empathy for people who are impoverished to understand their situation. So it was a really good program. Unfortunate that I really can't be there as much as I would like to be, but it was really cool. They brought in people from, the state government to kind of help and basically tell them, these are some things you can do. These are some resources that we have. And they had job applications there, and it was just a really cool thing that they did. And so there's places like that all over the place in this country where people can definitely get assistance without it being taxpayer dollars. So there's different ways we can go about this. And I do think that Mitch McConnell's in the right and that the media treated him wrong. And I do think Donald Trump is right by saying that we need to cut back. Well, he's asking his cabinet secretaries to cut back 5% of their budget by next year. I think that's an appropriate thing to do, especially with this large deficit we've had. So, and, we're also bringing in a lot of money from the cutting of regulations that Donald Trump is done. And also, we're bringing in more money, I believe, from, if I'm not mistaken, the tariffs. I'd have to double check on that, but I believe that is true. Now, switching this up a little bit to something a little more serious, and that is Hillary Clinton's claim that the only way to bring civility back into America is to vote Democratic. Now, I have some evidence on why that is true and why you shouldn't vote Republican. No, I'm just kidding. So, in Minnesota over the weekend, 2 Republican candidates were assaulted. One was a female. She was running for State Representative Sarah Anderson of Plymouth. She was confronting a man who was kicking off her campaign signs. She confronted him, and then he charged her, punched her in the arm, and obviously she was very scared because she wasn't expecting to get assaulted by a man who was doing these things, especially a man. You know, we're supposed to make sure women are not being abused by men, and the left doesn't seem to care about that when it's a Democrat or a leftist who's assaulting a right-leaning woman. And that seems to be okay, just like the guy who kicked the woman for being pro-life. This guy literally kicked this chick because she said that she was pro-life. And then, so yeah, this is the party for civility right here. And the other candidate is running for Minnesota House of Representatives. And he was cold-cocked at a bar on Friday night, out of nowhere. This was totally unexpected. He just got punched. He was knocked out, lost his memory. And yeah, he ended up, I believe, in the hospital, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the party of civility right here, people. This is the party of civility. They're attacking women. They're sucker punching men at bars. And also, a staffer of the Democratic Party just tweeted out that they need to bring the guillotine to the Republicans. And the way that she was punished, she was suspended for a week without pay. A week without pay. That's it. That's it. But she's inciting violence. But guess what? Since she's left-leaning, it's okay. This is the party of civility. Remember that. Remember that. They threaten to kill people if they have different views than you do. They attack women. And they sucker punch people for having different views. So, yeah, and then another thing that happened with an Antifa group over in New York, they attacked the Republican Club over in Manhattan. And they vandalized it. They spray painted an anarchy sign on the window. And then they left a letter. And I'm going to read you this letter. It says, "Tonight we put the Republican Party on notice. In defiance of the policies of mass misery they have championed, the U.S. government has established concentration camps around the country for Latino people, shamelessly murdering black people, and continues its war machine that has slaughtered Muslim people with impunity for decades. The so-called land of the free leads the world in incarceration rates per capita, all while profiteering in the new plantation within the prison walls. With these atrocities persist unabated, the Metropolitan Republican Club chose to invite a hipster fascist clown to dance for them, content to reveal in their treachery against humanity. The Republican Party, joined by their spineless partners in crime, the Democrats, institute a policy of domestic and foreign terror felt the world over. Our attack is merely a beginning. We are not passive, we are not civil, and we will not apologize. Those of good conscience and clear mind know this state of oppression cannot remain. The U.S. fascist political system is one of the most savage institutions in history, and we will combat it relentlessly until all are free from American barbarism." Now, there's so many things that we can tear apart from this letter, and I think we're going to do that. So first off, they say the concentration camps for Latino people. First off, I don't think they know what a concentration camp is. Nobody's being forced to do labor here. And the Latino people they're referring to are illegal immigrants who are coming over here and breaking the law, so we have to detain them. And not to mention, there's a huge influx of drugs that come across the border from these illegal immigrants and drug smugglers and human traffickers and sex traffickers that are all part of these Latino people. Now, of course, they're innocent people who are coming over here trying to get a better life for them and their family, and they're being caught up in this mess. And maybe they don't have a way to come over here legally. I kind of doubt that, but maybe they don't have the financial needs to do that, whatever. But regardless, you're breaking the law. So it isn't a concentration camp, first off. And then the shamelessly murdering of black people, that right there is a huge exaggeration. And the reason for that is because there's more Hispanics and white people, if I'm not mistaken, who are killed by police officers. Although I do understand that white people make a larger population, make up a larger portion of the population in America. I do get that. So right there, that kind of skews the statistics. But to say that they're shamelessly murdering black people is wrong. What should really be said is that the black on black crime is tremendous, and I don't know any other way to put this, I'm not trying to be offensive, but they kill each other at a faster rate than police officers are killing them. So, but nobody's talking about this, especially in Chicago. It's a war zone over in Chicago. More people die in Chicago than they do fighting overseas in wars. That's just black on black crime. That's horrible, but, America's to blame as a whole for that. And then the slaughtering of Muslim people with impunity for decades. Now, yes, there have been innocent Muslims and children and women who have been victims of the war that's going on over there in the Middle East, which I don't even think we should be over there right now. And there was no reason for us to go over there in the first place, as we found out. There were no weapons of mass destruction or anything like that. So my suspicion is it has a lot to do with the poppy fields that, the poppy fields that grow over there. Just suspiciously, we have a lot of U.S. Military people guarding these poppy fields. And, now in Afghanistan, their poppy fields are booming. They're making tremendous amounts of money from them. And, we have this big opioid crisis with heroin and things like that. This is where all that stuff comes from, folks, from these poppy fields. And, it's just a little suspicious right there. So I do kind of agree with some of what they say right there with the Muslim people, because there are a lot of innocent people who are dying because of this kind of pointless war we're at over there. Most people don't really fear the terrorist groups that are over there, because we really shouldn't. They're a small percentage of people. And, I think bigger threats are a country like China, which I've been covering a lot lately. And so really, the so-called land of free, when they say that too, well, it is the land of the free. We are actually the freest country in the world. If you go over to England, they don't really have free speech. A lot of these European countries don't have the same constitutional, they don't have a constitution that states out the rights that Americans have and that the government's supposed to protect. They don't, and, the government doesn't give you these rights. They are supposed to protect these rights, and a lot of these countries do not have that. And, we have that, and I definitely do not agree with the land of the free, because who are you comparing us to? Really, that's the real question. Who are you comparing us to when you say freedom? Because we definitely have the most freedom out of any country in the world. Now, when they say the highest incarceration rate per capita, that is true. That is true. We do. But everybody went up in arms when Kanye West said abolish the 13th Amendment. And this is the reason he said abolish the 13th Amendment, is because leads the world in incarceration rates per capita, all while profiteering in the new plantation within the prison walls. This is what Kanye West was getting at when he said abolish the 13th Amendment. There's a loophole in it that states the only way that you can do slave work or become a slave is if you're imprisoned. So this is what Kanye West was saying. By abolishing the 13th Amendment, then you get rid of this new plantation that they have founded through the prison system. This I can agree with completely. And, people go up in arms when Kanye West suggests that we abolish the 13th Amendment because it's the thing that eliminated slavery. But do we really think that people are going to go back to owning slaves? Think about it. Do you know anybody right now who would actually own a slave? Think about that. Now, you may know some racist people, but I guarantee you even those racist people wouldn't own a slave. Guarantee it. Nobody would. Nobody would, because we have more empathy as a country than that right now. Right now, we are just more emotionally intelligent than we were before. That's why we don't have slaves. I mean, it's just insane for people to think that the only thing keeping black people and people of color in general out of chains is an amendment. I mean, that to me is asinine. You don't think that everybody's way of thinking now has changed from the 1800s? And not only that, but you're talking about a time frame where practically everybody, I'm not justifying what happened in America, slavery's sick. It was disgusting. But you're talking about a time frame where everybody in the world had slaves for hundreds and thousands of years. This is not something new. This is not something exclusive to America. I mean, probably somebody, regardless of your skin color, I can almost guarantee that somebody in your family line, somewhere way down there, few generations ago, was a slave. I'd be almost willing to bet my bottom dollar on it. Simply because it didn't matter what skin color you were. It just mattered your economic status, and 99% of the population was dirt poor. So to think that we'll go back to slavery days is just complete asinine to me. That is just not... People aren't thinking if they truly believe that without the 13th Amendment, we would still have slaves. That's just completely insane to me. If we eliminate the 13th Amendment, we will actually get rid of the new form of slavery which is being put in the prison system. Now, there is a debate to be had whether or not people who are in prison and broke the law have lost their rights as citizens. Now, me personally, if you didn't commit a violent offense and you didn't hurt anybody else, if you didn't steal somebody else's things or hurt them physically, I don't think you should go to prison for that. I really don't think you should. If it's a nonviolent offense, I don't really think that you should even go to jail. Maybe be fined, but that's about it. Maybe get a ticket, but that's about it. And if you're not hurting somebody or taking somebody's things, possessions, or damaging their property, I don't think that you should be punished whatsoever, other than maybe a fine, like I said. So, yeah. So this once again, anti-fascist are leftists. And remember, if you're left-leaning, you're for civility. That's per Hillary Clinton. So that's what's going on in the news today. There's a lot of interesting stories going on. And so, yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the episode, and we'll be back tomorrow. Peace.